The great crystal hall of Nexus Prime stretched out like a frozen ocean. 847 different species filled the massive space. Some walked on legs. Others floated in tanks of liquid. A few existed as pure energy glowing softly in special containers. All of them had come to judge humanity. Elena Vasquez stood at the center of it all. She was the human ambassador, and today she spoke for all of Earth's children scattered across the galaxy. Her hands shook slightly as she looked up at the towering seats around her. 200 years ago, humans had first joined this council. Today, they might be thrown out forever. The charges against humanity were written on a screen of light above her head. The words burned bright blue in the air: excessive aggression, unpredictable expansion, diplomatic volatility. Elena had read these words 1,000 times, but they still made her angry. Behind her sat the human delegation. 12 people from different worlds where humans had made homes. There was Dr. Sarah Kim from the research station at Alpha Centauri, Captain Rodriguez from the mining colonies in the Outer Rim, Professor Wang from the University World of New Geneva. And at the back, silent as always, sat General Marcus Chung. He was the oldest human in the delegation. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the proceedings. The Zephyrian speaker rose from the highest seat. Zephyrians were tall, thin beings with 4 arms and skin like silver metal. This one wore the robes of judgment, deep purple with gold threads that moved like living things. When the speaker moved, all other voices in the hall went quiet. "Humanity stands accused," the speaker said. Their voice echoed through the hall without the need for amplifiers. "For 200 years you have been part of this council. For 200 years you have caused problems." Elena stepped forward. "Honored speaker, we request the right to defend ourselves." "You may speak," the speaker replied. Elena took a deep breath. She had practiced this speech for months. Every word had been chosen carefully. Every fact had been checked and rechecked. This was humanity's last chance. "Honored Council," she began, "we do not deny that humans are different. We expand quickly because we dream of new worlds. We defend ourselves strongly because we remember being weak. We speak our minds in negotiations because we believe truth serves everyone better than lies." She gestured to the screen above. "But look at what we have given. Human doctors created the cure for the Rigel plague that saved billions of Korthic lives. Human engineers built the quantum gates that let trade flow freely between distant worlds. Human peacekeepers have stopped 17 wars in the past 50 years alone." The hall remained silent. Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, we are aggressive when threatened. The Vrex pirates learned this when they attacked our colonies. But we are also the first to offer help when disaster strikes. When the Veltar homeworld was dying from solar flares, human ships carried their entire population to safety. When the crystal cities of Meridia were cracking, human architects showed them how to rebuild stronger than before." Elena pulled out a small device and activated it. Holographic images filled the air around her. Pictures of human doctors working alongside alien healers. Human children playing with young beings from dozens of different species. Human artists creating beautiful works that combine the best of many cultures. "This is who we are," Elena said. "We are not perfect. We make mistakes. But we learn from them. We grow. We adapt. We become better. Is this not what civilization is supposed to do?" She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as she could. Some looked away. Others watched her with what might have been sympathy. Most showed nothing at all. "If you cast us out," Elena said, "you lose more than just humanity. You lose the part of yourselves that dreams of tomorrow instead of fearing it. You lose the voice that asks, why not? When others say impossible, you lose the hands that reach out to help even when it costs us dearly." Elena's voice broke slightly. "We came to the stars seeking friends. We found family. Please do not make us leave that family behind." She stepped back and waited. The hall was completely silent now. Even the energy beings had stopped their usual gentle humming. The speaker raised all 4 arms. "The council will now deliberate." What followed was the shortest deliberation in council. History. The delegates spoke in their own languages, using private communication channels that humans could not access. Elena watched their faces, trying to read expressions on features that were completely alien to her. Some species had no faces at all. In just 10 minutes it was over. The speaker stood again. The vote has been cast. 839 members voted to expel humanity from this council. 5 members abstained. 3 members were not present for the vote. Elena felt the words hit her like a physical blow. She had expected this, but it still hurt more than she thought possible. By the power of this council, the speaker continued, humanity is hereby expelled from galactic society. All trade agreements are void. All defensive pacts are dissolved. All research partnerships are terminated. You have 30 standard cycles to remove all human presence from non-human territories. The speaker's voice grew harder. Any human found in council space after this deadline will be considered an invader and treated accordingly. Elena opened her mouth to respond. 200 years of partnership thrown away in 10 minutes. 30 cycles to abandon everything humans had built among the stars. It was impossible. It was unfair. She had so much to say, so many arguments to make, but then she felt a hand on her shoulder. General Chun had stood up and walked to her side. His old eyes were calm, but there was something in them that Elena had never seen before. Something. Cold and final? No, he said quietly, no words. Elena stared at him. General, we have to try. We have to make them understand. Chun shook his head slowly. They understand perfectly. They have made their choice. Now we make ours. He turned to face the council. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the vast hall. We accept your judgment, he said simply. The human delegation began to stand. One by one, they closed their data pads and gathered their belongings. No one spoke. No one argued. No one begged for mercy or threatened revenge. Dr. Kim folded her research notes with steady hands. Captain Rodriguez shouldered his travel bag and straightened his uniform. Professor Wang removed his translation earpiece and placed it carefully. On his seat, Elena watched in shock as her people prepared to leave. What are you doing? She whispered. What we should have done long ago, Chun replied. We are going home. The human delegation walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the silent hall. 847 species watched them go, and no one spoke. At the doorway, Elena turned back for one last look. The Zephyrian speaker was still standing, all 4 arms spread wide in the gesture of final judgment. Around the hall, delegates were already turning to other business. The expulsion of humanity was over. It was time to move on, but something in the silence felt wrong. Elena had expected anger, celebration, or at least relief from the council. Instead, there was an uncomfortable quiet. As if something important had just been lost, and no one wanted to admit it, General Chun took her arm gently. Come, he said. We have work to do. Elena nodded and followed him out. Behind them, the great crystal hall of Nexus Prime continued its business. But for the first time in 200 years, there were no humans in the galaxy's most important room. The age of humanity among the stars was over. Or so the council believed. The evacuation began the same day. From the moment General Chun sent out the coded message, "Come home," humanity moved with a speed that shocked the galaxy. Ships that had been docked for maintenance suddenly powered up. Research stations that had operated for decades started shutting down. Mining colonies that fed the galactic economy went dark one by one. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in her laboratory on the research station orbiting Alpha Centauri. For 15 years, this had been her home. She had developed 3 different cures for alien diseases here. Her team had created new technologies that made space travel safer for everyone. Now she was packing it all into storage containers. Her alien assistant, a gentle Meridian named Veltok, watched with confusion. Meridians looked like tall humans made of living crystal, and Veltok's surface flickered with sad blue lights. Dr. Kim, Veltok said, surely you do not have to leave so quickly. The Council gave you 30 cycles. That is almost 3 months in Earth time. Sarah smiled sadly as she sealed another container. That's the thing about humans, Veltok. When we decide to do something, we do it all the way. She looked around the lab one more time. Besides, they don't want us here, so why pretend we belong? Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds. Captain Rodriguez oversaw the shutdown of the Kepler mining complex. The operation had extracted rare minerals that powered starships throughout the galaxy. In just 2 weeks, human workers dismantled equipment that had taken years to build. The Korthek overseer, a bear-like creature named Grox, couldn't understand the efficiency. Captain, you are destroying valuable equipment. Surely you can sell it to us instead. Rodriguez shook his head as he watched another mining platform being broken down into transportable pieces. This equipment was designed by human engineers. For human workers, you wouldn't know how to use it properly. But the manuals, Grox began. The manuals don't teach you how to think like a human, Rodriguez interrupted, and that's what you need to make this work. The Korthek watched in growing alarm as humans stripped their own facilities bare. Nothing was left behind. Every piece of technology, every research note, every spare part disappeared into human cargo ships. On New Geneva, Professor Wang supervised the evacuation of the university. This world had been humanity's greatest educational achievement. Students from across the galaxy came here to learn alongside human teachers. The university had become a symbol of cooperation between species. Now it was closing forever. A young Zephyrian student approached Professor Wang with tears in her large silver eyes. Professor, what will happen to us? You taught me to think in new ways. You showed me that problems always have solutions if you look hard enough. Wang felt his heart break a little. You will find other teachers, Lenara. Better teachers than old humans like me? No, the student said firmly. There are no teachers like humans. You never say impossible. You always say try again. Who will teach us that when you are gone? Wang had no answer for her. The galaxy's first response was relief mixed with greed. Stock markets soared as corporations realized that valuable human assets would soon be available. The Korthek Mining Consortium announced plans to take over human mining operations. The Veltar Trade Federation began calculating how much they could expand into human shipping routes on Nexus Prime. The Council held emergency sessions to divide up human territories and resources. What had seemed like a diplomatic crisis was becoming an economic opportunity. The humans controlled 17% of all galactic shipping, announced Councillor Thex of the Aquatic Leagues. Those routes will now be open for redistribution. Their research facilities contain technologies we have been unable to access, added the Stellar Assembly representative. With proper study, we can reverse engineer their advances. But as weeks passed, problems began to appear. The Vrex pirates, who had stayed quiet for years, suddenly became active again. A human patrol fleet had protected the Outer Rim territories. With those ships gone, the pirates grew bold. Their first target was a Veltar trading post on the edge of civilized space. The attack was swift and brutal. The Veltar defense ships were designed for show, not real combat. They had relied on human protection for so long that they had forgotten how to fight. The trading post was destroyed. 300 aliens died. The pirates took everything of value and disappeared back into the void. Captain Zixtar of the Unified Defense Fleet filed an urgent report to the Council. The human patrol routes were not random. They were carefully planned to protect vulnerable targets. Without those patrols, we have huge gaps in our defense grid. The Council dismissed his concerns. The humans made us dependent on them, said the Zephyrian speaker. We will learn to protect ourselves again. But the problems grew worse. On Kepler Station, the Korthek tried to restart the mining operation. Despite having all the equipment and manuals, they couldn't make it work properly. The mining platforms kept breaking down. The ore processors produced material of poor quality. Within a month, they had 3 major accidents. Grox sent frustrated messages to his superiors. The humans made it look easy, but everything here is more complex than it appears. We need human engineers to train our workers. The response was cold. There are no human engineers. Make it work with what you have. On the research station at Alpha Centauri, the new Meridian staff tried to continue Dr. Kim's work. They had all her notes and equipment, but they couldn't replicate her results. The humans had a way of thinking that was hard to copy. They took risks that seemed dangerous but somehow worked. They tried solutions that logic said were impossible. Veltog found himself staring at Dr. Kim's empty laboratory every day. The other researchers were brilliant, but they lacked something essential. They followed procedures perfectly but never invented new ones. They solved known problems but couldn't handle unexpected ones. The worst crisis came when the Harvester Plague returned. This disease had nearly destroyed the galaxy 50 years earlier. Human bio-researchers had created a treatment that kept it contained. The treatment required constant updates as the plague evolved. Dr. Kim and her team had been working on the latest update when the evacuation order came. They took all their research with them. When the plague broke containment on 3 worlds simultaneously, the galactic medical community panicked. They had the old treatments, but those were already failing. The plague had evolved beyond their ability to control it. Thousands died in the first week. Millions were at risk. Dr. Han of the Meridian Medical Council sent a desperate message to the human evacuation fleet. Dr. Kim, please, people are dying. We need your help. The response came from General Chun himself. It was short and cold. Humanity is no longer part of galactic society. This is no longer our problem, the evacuation continued. Human ships disappeared beyond the galactic rim one by one. The generation ship New Horizon was one of the last to leave. Dr. Kim stood on its observation deck, watching the galaxy shrink behind them. Are we doing the right thing? She asked Captain Martinez, the ship's commander. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. The council wanted us gone. We're giving them exactly what they asked for. The people are dying from the plague. We could help them. They had 200 years to learn how to work with us, Martinez replied. Instead, they learned how to depend on us. There's a difference. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. Around them, the last human ship departed from civilized space. Behind them, the galaxy burned with the light of 1,000 conflicts that humans were no longer there to prevent or solve. The final message from humanity came from Admiral Chun aboard the command ship Exodus. It was broadcast on all frequencies in all languages. We came in peace. We offered partnership. You chose exile. We accept your judgment. Earth remembers her children, and her children remember who cast them out. Do not look for us. Do not call. For us, we are no longer your problem, and you are no longer ours. The transmission ended. The last human ship vanished into the darkness between galaxies. For the first time in 200 years, humanity was completely gone from galactic civilization. The silence they left behind was deeper than anyone had expected. 50 years had passed since humanity vanished beyond the galactic rim. The galaxy had learned to live without them, or so the Council believed. But cracks were spreading through the foundation of galactic civilization, and those cracks were getting bigger every day. The Syndra-Corthic trade war had been raging for 3 years now. What started as a simple dispute over shipping routes had exploded into a conflict that threatened to tear apart the galactic economy. Both sides demanded justice. Both sides claimed the other had broken ancient agreements. Both sides refused. To compromise. In the old days, human diplomats would have stepped in. They had a gift for finding solutions that nobody else could see. They would have locked both sides in a room and refused to let them out until they found a way to work together. Now there was no one with the authority or the skill to stop the fighting. Counselor Vexahan of the Stellar Assembly paced nervously in his private chambers on Nexus Prime. Through his window, he could see the lights of protest ships surrounding the station. The Corthic Mining Consortium demanded military action against Syndra aggression. The Syndra Trade Federation wanted economic sanctions against Corthic expansion. Both sides had brought fleets to make their point. This is madness, Vexahan muttered. To his aide, a young Meridian named Crystal. In the old days, this would have been resolved in a week. Crystal's crystal body flickered with nervous yellow light. Perhaps we could contact the human diplomatic archives? Surely they left some records of their negotiation techniques. Vexahen laughed bitterly. We tried that years ago. The humans took everything with them. Every file, every recording, every training manual. They left us nothing. The problems went far beyond diplomacy. Captain Zixtar stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, staring at a tactical display that showed dozens of red warning lights. Each light represented a Rex pirate attack in the past month. The attacks were getting bolder and more frequent. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Meridian transport vessel Crystal Song. They're under attack by 5 Rex raiders in the Nebula sector. Zixtar checked his ship's position. How long to reach them? 4 hours at maximum speed, sir. By then it will be too late. Zixtar slammed his fist against the command console. This is the 3rd attack this week that we cannot respond to in time. His tactical officer, a seasoned Veltar named Commander Jex, studied the display with growing frustration. Sir, the human patrol routes covered twice as much space with half as many ships. How did they do it? They had bases everywhere, Zixtar replied. Not just military bases. Research stations, mining platforms, trading posts. Every human installation could serve as a refueling point or emergency shelter. They had turned the entire galaxy into their support network. And we destroyed that network when we forced them to leave, Jack said quietly. The Rex pirates had figured this out faster than anyone else. Their leader, a vicious creature called Scarfang, had been studying human tactics for decades. Now he was using their own strategies against the galaxy they had once protected. The humans were smart, Scarfang explained to his raider captains during a planning session. They did not try to be everywhere at once. They made it so they could be anywhere quickly. Now that they are gone, we own the spaces between the stars. The pirates had acquired new weapons from somewhere. Their ships were faster and better armed than before. Some of the technology looked familiar, but no one could identify its source. When questioned, captured pirates just laughed and said their new friends were much more generous than the old galaxy had ever been. The medical crisis was even worse than the military one. The Harvester Plague had broken containment completely. It now ravaged 14 star systems, with new cases appearing every day. The plague evolved faster than the galactic medical community could develop treatments. Dr. Han of the Meridian Medical Council had aged decades in the past 5 years. Her crystal body, once bright and clear, now showed stress fractures from constant worry. She stood before an emergency meeting of the medical consortium, delivering news that nobody wanted to hear. The situation is getting worse, she announced. The plague has mutated again. Our current treatments are only 60% effective. We estimate that we have 6 months before complete treatment failure. A Korthak doctor named Brutus stood up angrily. This is ridiculous. The humans dealt with this plague for 50 years. Without problems, surely their methods cannot be that complex. Dr. Han displayed a holographic image of the plague organism. The humans did not just treat the plague. They predicted its evolution and developed treatments for mutations before they appeared. They thought 5 steps ahead while we struggle to keep up with one. Then we must think like humans, declared Dr. Senth of the Aquatic Leagues. We must learn their methods. With what? Dr. Han asked bitterly. They took all their research. They took their computers. They even took their medical students. We have equipment but no knowledge. We have tools but no understanding of how to use them properly. The worst discovery came from the archaeology division. Dr. Malthan, a respected Zephyrian scientist, had been studying some of the abandoned human facilities. What he found in the old research files terrified him. He burst into Counselor Threndai's office without an appointment, his forearms shaking with excitement and fear. Counselor, I have made a terrible discovery about the human patrol routes. Threndai looked up from her administrative work with annoyance. Dr. Malthan, I am very busy dealing with the current crisis. Whatever this is about can wait. No, Cannot, Dr. Malthan insisted. He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from above. Tiny blue lines marked the old human patrol routes, creating a complex web of intersecting paths. Look at this pattern, Dr. Malthan said. I thought the human patrols were random, designed to catch pirates and smugglers. But they were not random. At all, they form a defensive perimeter around the entire galaxy. Threndai studied the display with growing alarm. Defensive against what? That is what I wanted to know, Dr. Malthan replied. He changed the display to show long-range sensor data from the past 50 years. I have been analyzing signals from beyond the galactic rim. For decades, we detected faint energy signatures from the void between galaxies. The humans classified these as background radiation and told us to ignore them. The display changed again, showing recent sensor readings. The faint signals had become much stronger. The signals are not background radiation, Dr. Malthan said. Quietly, they are artificial. Something is out there in the void, and it has been getting closer for 50 years? The humans knew about it. Their patrols were not protecting trade routes. They were protecting us. Threndai felt her blood turn cold. Are you saying we are under threat from outside the galaxy? I'm saying we have been under threat for a very long time, Dr. Malthan replied. And the humans were the only thing standing between us and whatever is coming. As if summoned by his words, every alarm in the building began to sound. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the council chambers. Threndai's communication console erupted with incoming messages from across the galaxy. The first message came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the galactic edge. Council, this is Observer Station Alpha. We are detecting massive structures approaching from intergalactic space. These are not natural formations. Repeat, we have confirmation of artificial structures of enormous size approaching our galaxy. The second message was even more disturbing. Council, this is the research vessel Bright Star. We sent a probe to investigate the approaching structures. The probe has been destroyed, but not by weapons. Something converted it into a different kind of matter entirely. We have never seen technology like this before. Dr. Malthan and Counselor Threndai stared at each other in growing horror. 50 years ago, humanity had tried to warn them about threats they could not see. The Council had called them paranoid and aggressive. Now those threats were real and approaching fast. Get me a connection to the human fleet, Threndai ordered her communications officer. Counselor, we have no way to contact them. They have been silent for 50 years. We do not even know if they still exist. Threndai sank into her chair as the full weight of their situation hit her. The galaxy faced an unknown enemy with technology beyond their understanding. The greatest military and scientific minds they had ever known were gone, cast out by their own foolish pride. For the first time since the human exodus, the Council realized what they had truly lost. They had not just expelled a troublesome member species. They had thrown away their protectors, their teachers, and their only hope of survival against the darkness between the stars. The galaxy was alone, and something terrible was coming home. The truth about what humanity had become was more shocking than anything the galaxy could have imagined. In the 50 years since their exile, humans had not just survived in the void between galaxies. They had transformed into something beyond recognition. The first signs appeared without warning. Long-range sensors throughout the galaxy detected massive energy signatures, approaching from the direction of the galactic rim. These were not the alien structures that had been slowly advancing from intergalactic space. These signatures were different, familiar yet impossibly advanced. Captain Zixtar was on patrol near the outer rim when his sensors picked up the largest artificial structure he had ever seen. It was moving toward the galaxy at incredible speed, but it was not one of the threatening alien vessels they had been tracking. Sir, his sensor officer reported, voice shaking with disbelief. I'm reading human energy signatures from that structure. That's impossible, Zixtar replied. Human ships were small, efficient vessels. This thing is the size of a moon. The structure continued its approach, and more details became clear. It was not just the size of a moon. It was larger than most. planets. The hull showed design elements that were unmistakably human, but the technology was centuries beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's in standard galactic common, but the source is definitely human." "Put it through," Zixtar ordered. A woman's voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. "Galactic Defense Vessel Starlight. This is Admiral Lisa Chun Okafor of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are ordered to evacuate the Nexus Prime system immediately. You have 6 hours to complete evacuation before we begin emergency containment." "Procedures." Zixtar stared at his communications console. "Chun Okafor, but General Marcus Chun died 30 years ago." "Who are you?" "I am his granddaughter," the voice replied. "And I am here to save your lives, whether you want to be saved or not." On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions of the Council were called as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Massive human vessels had appeared at dozens of critical locations. Each ship was larger than the biggest space stations the galaxy had ever built. They moved through space using technology that seemed to bend reality itself. The largest vessel appeared directly above Nexus Prime. It was so huge that it blocked out the light from the system's star, casting the entire planet into shadow. Its hull was a deep black metal that seemed to absorb light, covered with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Counselor Threndai stood in the council chambers, staring up through the transparent dome at the impossible sight above them. Around her, delegates from hundreds of species argued and shouted in panic. Some wanted to attack the human ships. Others wanted to surrender immediately. Most were simply too scared to think clearly. "Order!" Threndai shouted. "We need to contact them. We need to understand what they want." Before anyone could respond, the air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Then, without any visible means of transportation, a figure appeared standing in the middle of the room. It was human, or had been human once. Admiral Lisa Chun Okafor was tall and elegant, wearing a uniform of deep blue material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Her eyes glowed with a soft silver light, and when she moved, the air around her sparkled with energy. "Honored Council," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber without amplification. "I bring greetings from humanity and a warning you must heed immediately." The chamber fell silent. Even the most aggressive delegates were too shocked to speak. This was not the primitive species they had cast out 50 years ago. This was something far beyond their understanding. "You are Admiral Chun Okafor?" Threndai managed to ask. "I am," Lisa replied. "Granddaughter of Marcus Chun, daughter of Sarah Chun Kim, Admiral of the 3rd Human Fleet and current commander of Operation Salvation." "Operation Salvation?" Counselor Vexahan stepped forward, his voice trembling. "What does that mean?" Lisa gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air above the council. It showed the galaxy from outside, with massive dark shapes approaching from several directions. The shapes were enormous, each one larger than entire star systems. "The Devourers," Lisa said simply. "They have consumed 17 galaxies before ours. They convert all matter and energy into more of themselves. They will arrive in this galaxy in approximately 14 days. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed questions in dozens of languages. Some fainted. Others tried to run for the exits. "Silence," Lisa said, and her voice carried a power that made everyone stop moving. "You have a choice. You can work with us to survive, or you can die with dignity. Those are the only options available." Counselor Threndai forced herself to step forward. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Lisa replied. "We do not need your permission, your resources, or your cooperation. We are here because our ancestors once called this galaxy home. We will not let it be destroyed on our watch." She gestured again, and the display changed to show human ships taking positions throughout the galaxy. "Our engineering fleets are already building defensive installations at strategic points. Our evacuation ships are preparing to move civilian populations to safety. Our combat fleets are taking positions to engage the Devourers when they arrive. But you cannot simply take over, protested the Zephyrian speaker. We are a sovereign civilization. We have rights. Lisa's expression did not change, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. You had rights when you chose to exile us. You had sovereignty when you refused our partnership. You threw those things away when you decided you did not need us. She walked closer to the speaker, and her footsteps seemed to echo with impossible depth. Now you face extinction, and you still speak of rights and sovereignty. We are not here to rule you. We are here to save you. Be grateful. We still consider you worth saving. The truth about human evolution came in fragments over the following days. In their exile, humanity had encountered the architects, an ancient machine intelligence that had been watching the galaxy for millions of years. Instead of fighting or fleeing, humans had done what they always did. They had adapted, learned, and found a way to work together. The architects had given humanity access to technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, travel between dimensions, and manipulate time itself. In return, humans had given the architects something they had lost eons ago, the ability to grow and change. Together, they had built not just ships, but mobile civilizations. Entire cities that existed in folded space, weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, defenses that could protect entire galaxies, but the most shocking revelation was what humanity had become. They were no longer just baseline humans. Some had merged with artificial intelligence. Others had transcended physical form entirely. A few had become something that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Dr. Han encountered one of the human medical teams when they arrived to deal with the Harvester Plague. The lead doctor introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Kim Chun, descendant of the Dr. Kim who had once worked on Alpha Centauri. But Dr. Kim was human, Dr. Han said in confusion, staring at the being before her. Sarah appeared human, but her body flickered between solid matter and pure energy. Her hands could become surgical tools when needed. Her eyes could see diseases. At the molecular level, I am still human, Sarah replied gently. I am just more than I used to be. She gestured to her medical equipment, which seemed to flow and reshape itself as needed. We learned to become what we needed to be. When we faced the void between galaxies, we became explorers. When we met the architects, we became students. When we discovered the devourers, we became warriors. Sarah began treating plague victims with methods that seemed like magic. The disease was not just cured, but completely eliminated from their bodies. The plague you fear so much is primitive compared to what we have faced. We have fought diseases that could consume entire star systems. As human teams spread throughout the galaxy, preparing defenses and evacuating civilians, the scope of their transformation became clear. They had not just advanced their technology. They had evolved beyond the limitations of biology, physics, and time itself. Admiral Lisa Chun Okafor stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Vindication, watching the preparations unfold. The ship existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Its crew, including beings that had once been human architect intelligences, and hybrid consciousnesses that had never been alive in any conventional sense. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, all defensive positions are ready. Evacuation of civilian populations is 80% complete. Combat fleets are in position. Lisa nodded, her enhanced consciousness processing data from across the galaxy simultaneously. And the Council? Still arguing about sovereignty and rights? The officer replied with what might have been amusement. Lisa almost smiled. Some things never change. Humans adapt and survive. Politicians argue and complain. Perhaps that is why we were always destined to become what we are. The devourers were coming, but humanity was ready. The galaxy that had cast them out would be protected, whether it wanted to be or not. The children of Earth had returned home, and the devourers arrived exactly when Admiral Chun Okafor predicted they would. They emerged from the darkness between galaxies like a living nightmare, their ships stretching across light years of space. Each vessel was a twisted fusion of metal and flesh, pulsing with dark energy that consumed light itself, from the safety of evacuation ships. Billions of aliens watched in terror as the enemy fleet approached. The Devourers had consumed 17 galaxies before this one. Entire civilizations had been converted into more of their kind. Nothing had ever stopped them, but they had never faced humanity before. Admiral Lisa Shanokofer stood on the bridge of the Vindication, watching the enemy approach with calm eyes. Around her, the command crew worked with quiet efficiency. Some were human, others were architect intelligences, and a few were hybrid beings that existed in multiple realities at once. Enemy fleet has reached the outer defensive perimeter, reported Commander Vex, a being who had once been human but now existed as pure consciousness within the ship's quantum matrix. They are beginning their standard conversion protocols. Lisa nodded. The Devourers always used the same tactics. They would send out conversion beams that changed matter into their own twisted substance. Then they would use that converted matter to build more ships, more weapons, more of themselves. It was a strategy that had worked for millions of years. Show them something new, Lisa ordered. The first surprise came when the Devourers tried to convert the outer defense stations. The conversion beams struck human installations and simply stopped working. The stations absorbed the energy and converted it into pure light that blazed across space like new stars. "Impossible," hissed the Devourer fleet commander through communications channels that leaked into normal space. "Nothing resists the great conversion. What are you?" Lisa activated the general communication system, broadcasting her response across all frequencies. "We are humanity. We are the species you underestimated. We are the children of a world that taught us to adapt or die. And we choose to adapt." The battle began in earnest. Devourer ships launched waves of conversion weapons and reality-breaking attacks. They tried to corrupt space itself, turning the vacuum into a hostile environment that would destroy any normal fleet, but the human ships were far from normal. They existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, allowing them to avoid attacks by shifting into parallel realities. When Devourer weapons tried to corrupt space around them, the human ships simply stepped outside of normal physics entirely. Captain Zixtar watched from his evacuation vessel, his instruments barely able to track what was happening. "My sensors cannot keep up with this battle," he reported to anyone who would listen. "The human ships are moving faster than light without using hyperspace. They are firing weapons that seem to rewrite the laws of physics." On Nexus Prime, the Council huddled in their emergency bunkers, watching displays that showed the impossible battle raging in space above them. Counselor Threndai stared at readings that made no sense. "The Devourer fleet is losing," she whispered in disbelief. "How is that possible? They have never lost a battle in recorded history." Dr. Malthan, the Zephyrian scientist who had first discovered the approaching threat, studied the tactical displays with growing amazement. "The humans are not just fighting them. They are converting the Devourers themselves. Look at these readings." The displays showed Devourer ships suddenly changing color and configuration. Instead of the twisted dark metal they had been, they were becoming something bright and clean. The conversion process was happening in reverse. "What are they doing?" Threndai asked. "They are healing them," Dr. Malthan replied with wonder in his voice. "The Devourers were once a peaceful species millions of years ago. Something corrupted them, turned them into this consuming plague. The humans are not destroying them, they are curing them." Admiral Chun Okafor had indeed discovered the truth about the Devourers during humanity's years in exile. With the help of the architects, human scientists had learned that the Devourers were victims of an ancient weapon designed to turn any species into a self-replicating army. The weapon had worked too well, creating an endless hunger that could never be satisfied. "Target their core programming," Lisa ordered her fleet. "Use the reversal protocols we developed. Strip away the corruption and restore their original nature." The battle became something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of destruction, there was healing. Instead of conquest, there was liberation. One by one, Devourer ships stopped their attacks as their crews remembered who they had been before the corruption took hold. The Devourer Fleet Commander was the last to be cured. When the reversal process reached his flagship, centuries of artificial hunger and rage fell away like a discarded shell. For the first time in millions of years, he could think clearly. What have we done? He transmitted to Admiral Chenokuffer, his voice filled with horror and grief. We destroyed so many worlds, so many innocent lives. The corruption made us forget, made us hungry for things we should never have wanted. What you have done is... In the past, Lisa replied gently. What you do now is what matters. Will you help us heal the damage that was done? The former Devourer commander, who now remembered his true name was Keeper Zan of the Healer Singer people, bowed his massive head. We will spend eternity trying to undo the harm we caused. We will restore what was consumed. We will bring life back to the dead galaxies. And they did. Over the following months, the galaxy watched in amazement as the former Devourers began the greatest restoration project in history. Using their conversion technology in reverse, they started rebuilding the civilizations they had destroyed. Dead worlds bloomed with life again. Extinct species were recreated from genetic traces. Lost knowledge was recovered from quantum echoes. The 17 galaxies that had been consumed were not gone forever. They could be restored, and the process had already begun, but the most profound change was in the galaxy itself. The crisis had shattered the old council structure completely. The species that had once ruled through fear and politics found themselves in a universe where such things no longer mattered. Humanity offered a new choice to every species in the galaxy. They could join the Confederation of Worlds as equal partners, working together to explore the universe and protect all life. Or they could maintain their independence while accepting humanity's protection from future threats. Most chose partnership. They had seen what isolation and fear could lead to. They had learned the price of rejecting those who offered help. Elena Vasquez, now over a century old but kept young by human medical technology, stood once again in the crystal chambers of Nexus Prime, but this time she was not an ambassador pleading for acceptance. She was the director of galactic integration, overseeing the transformation of galactic civilization. The chambers had changed too. Instead of towering seats arranged to show the hierarchy of power, there were simple circles where representatives could meet as equals. The crystal walls showed images from across the galaxy, former Devourer ships working alongside human vessels to restore dead worlds, mixed crews of a dozen species exploring new galaxies, children of different worlds playing together in schools that taught cooperation instead of competition. Counselor Threndai, one of the few original council members who had chosen to join the new system, approached Elena with something that might have been shame in her alien features. Director Vasquez, she said quietly, I owe you an apology. 50 years ago, we feared your people's strength and cast you out. We thought we were protecting ourselves from a threat. We never realized we were destroying our greatest hope for survival. Elena smiled, the same warm expression she had worn as a young ambassador decades ago. You made the choice you thought was right with the information you had. Now you are making a different choice with better information. That is what growth looks like. But so many died because of our mistake, Threndai continued. The plague victims, the people killed by pirates, the civilizations that fell because we did not have human help. And now those civilizations are being restored, Elena replied. The dead are being brought back to life. The damaged is being healed. We cannot change the past, but we can build a better future. She gestured to the images on the walls around them. This is what we always offered you. Partnership, cooperation, a chance to grow together instead of struggling alone. The offer was never withdrawn. It was just waiting for you to be ready to accept it. Outside the station, human ships worked alongside vessels from hundreds of species. They were building something that had never existed before. A truly unified galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of fear, on growth instead of stagnation, on hope instead of despair. The humans had kept their promise. They had offered partnership, been rejected, and disappeared without a word. But when the galaxy faced extinction, they had returned not as conquerors seeking revenge, But as protectors offering salvation, Elena looked out at the busy traffic of ships from 1,000 worlds and smiled. Humanity had learned to become what the universe needed them to be. First explorers, then students, then warriors, and finally teachers showing others how to transform fear into hope. The galaxy was no longer the same place that had cast out humanity 50